What's up, guys? We are back once again doing another matchup video. Um, we covered the Toronto Maple Leafs versus Tampa Bay. We covered LA versus the Oilers, and we covered St. Louis versus Minnesota. So don't forget to check out those videos. We're going to be continuing more matchups. Tomorrow we are covering the Washington Capitals versus the Florida Panthers. Sunday we're going to be covering the Pittsburgh Penguins versus the New York Rangers. So, and then we're going to finish off the West on Monday and Tuesday. Um, this is again another fresh matchup that I haven't seen in a very long time, or maybe ever before.
No, I
Uh,
think Boston and Carolina played each other before. I
they
think.
did
Yeah, but I don't remember. I forgot what year it was.
probably like in the early 2000s. I don't know. I feel like you would have to do your research on that and search that up, or maybe you guys could comment in the comment section below. I'm not
2019,
uh,
they played each other.
2019.
Yeah, Bruins won. Bruins won in four.
Holy crap! Never mind. I take that back. I'm not a
Yeah.
historian, guys. Okay, so the regular season matchup between both of these teams this year, the Hurricanes went 3-0-0, and the Boston Bruins went 0-3-0. Again, I like bringing this up because we kind of see where both teams are at. Does it necessarily matter? Not really, because the playoffs is a complete different beast.
Yeah.
We know that Boston struggled with goaltending this year with Allmark and Swayman at the start of the season. Tuukka Rask comes back, plays a couple of games. I think he was sore or he wasn't comfortable playing in terms of his body, and he didn't want to continue, so he retired after a couple of games.
Yeah.
After that, somehow Swayman and Allmark started kicking ass, and the Boston Bruins went on like an 8 or 9 game winning streak or something like that, and they were playing really good hockey. And
Mhm.
yeah, it seemed like like the goaltending seems to have been resolved, and there's no issue. The thing is that both teams equally split games this season. So who you gonna start with? For me, honestly, I gotta go with Jeremy Swayman. I think he's the better goalie, even though he is younger. Um, I just think that Swayman is the guy to go. And what are your thoughts on that, Luca?
I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, man. I think no matter which goalie they go in, I think they'll be okay. I know a lot of people are not big Linus Ullmark fans. I'm actually personally a big fan of him. I think he's a great goaltender.
I think he's underrated, but I
Yeah,
still feel that
yeah. But
Swayman is better.
But I
And
think I think if you're the Boston Bruins, you run with the young guy. I think you go with the rookie. I think you go with the guy that is going to be the future of your team. Not saying that Olmark won't be, but I'm saying that I think it's an opportunity where I think the Bruins are going to take it game by game, where it's going to be like, okay, we'll assess the performance of Swayman and then kind of decide. Like I think if Swayman loses game one, maybe game two they go with Olmark. I don't really know what Bruce Cassidy's thought process is going to be, but that's going to be interesting in this series
kind of
because
reminds me of Price and
goaltending is going
Black
to be
because
important.
both guys were young. There wasn't an official like starter. There were more like 1A, 1B. And
Yeah,
at that time, there was no such thing. I think it's more like in the last 5 years, they kind of adopted that a lot more where you have to have a 1A, 1B. Back
yeah,
in the day, 10 to 15 years ago, it was more like you need a solidified starting goalie and a backup. And Montreal had that 1A, 1B goal situation. It's like we need to trade one of them. But again, it seemed pretty worthy in the 2010 run that they had. Um, so going back to the Boston Bruins, obviously you have Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak, Patrice Bergeron, Taylor Hall, Charlie McAvoy. You have Eric Holla, who had a fantastic season. They put him on the second line. Is he necessarily a second line centerman? In my eyes, not
yeah,
really. But in terms of like the way he's been playing, it seems like the second line has been a good fit. You have Charlie Coyle, who's playing third line. Jake DeBrusk had a good season, picked it up towards the second half of the season with the Bruins. He demanded a trade at the beginning of the season. That was never fulfilled. There was kind of friction between him and Bruce Cassidy and management, but it seems that he still wants to trade out of Boston, but that's not going to happen until the offseason.
yeah.
Craig Smith, very good player. They added Hampus Lindholm during the deadline. You have Grizzlick as well, Lazar. Riley, Nick Foligno, sorry. This team, a lot of veteran presence, and like we were saying, uh, a couple of weeks ago at the deadline, Boston needed to do something big in terms of adding defense, which they did. This is a do or die season for the Boston Bruins. They're not getting
Yeah.
any younger. They're getting older. Bergeron's a UFA. We don't know what's gonna happen. It's either he stays with Boston or I think he retires. Um, Pasternak's not getting any younger. Marshall's up there in age as well. Their defensive core is not the greatest. Yes, they have Charlie McAvoy, the extended Hampus Lindholm, but compared to the Canes have so much better defensive core compared
Hmm.
to the Bruins. They have offensive defensemen and defensive defensemen, and some of their defensemen can have a little bit of offensive upside, whereas the
Yeah.
Bruins don't have that luxury, unfortunately.
No, and I think what's interesting with Carolina too, and kind of just talking about, I think Carolina all around is a better team than Boston. I think Boston, they're relied on by three guys. You can put Taylor Hall and say four, but it's really three guys and Charlie McAvoy. And I think that for Boston, they don't really have the depth. They kind of have three guys in Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak, and maybe Taylor Hall, and that's about it. And I think with Carolina, you see it around the lineup, right? You see that they have different players on different lines that can perform at different times.
And they
And
have a legitimate starting goaltender who I think is going to win the Vezina this year, Freddie
yeah,
Anderson. I know he's dealing with an injury, but I think he will be ready for the start of the first round. I mean, you have Sebastian Aho, you have um, Svechnikov, you have Teravainen, D'Angelo with all that controversy had a fantastic season. Um, Trocheck, Niederreiter, Slavin, Seth Jarvis playing his rookie season,
yeah,
Martin Nikas. You added Max Domi, who's had playoff experience in the past, and young veteran presence as well. You have Jordan Stahl, their captain, veteran presence. You have Jesperi Kokaniemi, who, yes, not the fantastic regular season that everyone was hoping that he was going to have because he joined a new organization, but he is fantastic in the playoffs. And as Montrealers, we've seen that with the Habs, where he was very crucial last year and also against Philly in the bubble. And maybe he steps it up again in the playoffs, as we've
yeah.
seen he's a playoff performer. um oh my god, I could go on and on. Stepan, Martin Hook, Bear, Cole,
Max
Fast,
Domi,
uh I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, so don't crucify me. Skiji, is that his name?
Brady Shea.
Shea, oh my god, yeah, I always butcher that. And they have a pretty solid goalie in Ranta. So like overall, like you were saying, in terms of their offense from first line to fourth line, completely blows out Boston, unfortunately, and defensively as well, completely blows them up. The only thing I would probably give Boston is I would say that if one goalie does not pan out, at least they have Allmark, whereas Carolina, if Anderson does not start or he's not doing well, and they try to go with Ranta. And I don't really trust Ranta. Yeah, he's done pretty well with the Hurricanes this year, but again, I in the playoff situation, rolling with Ranta, I don't know about that.
I uh, I think. Look, I'll be honest with you. I think this series is going to end faster than people think it is.
Five
Um,
games for
I think
and
it's
the
going to end in
Hurricanes are gonna win it.
5 or 6 games, and I think the reason why I say 5 games is because I'm going to be honest with you. I know the Bruins look good, and I know that they've played better towards the second half of the season than they did in the first half of the season. But I think for the Bruins, you're coming up against a team like Carolina, and I personally think Carolina's a cup contender. I think Carolina has a lot of potential to be a cup contender, and I
And
think
over the
that
years, they've been just
they
adding
just
and adding and adding. People
yeah,
thought they were gonna be bad without Hamilton, and then you
that's
add
it.
D'Angelo at a discount, and he steps up his game, despite all that controversy he was dealing with. And like I think people always look at the Hurricanes are like, oh, they're so offensively minded. They're not defensively minded. But I think overall, defensively and offensively, they're a they're a
They're
complete team.
they're they're not they're an all around team, and I think that that's going to ultimately make the difference for them. I think that Freddie Anderson has shown that this season, at least, that he's capable of being an elite goaltender when he needs to be. And I think that Boston's going to give Carolina, you know, not a rough time, but I think they're going to give them a decent time. But
Well,
like
physically, because we can all
physically,
admit
but I
that
think that
Boston's
they're
more
still going to lose.
physical than the Hurricanes, and that could potentially be a factor in Boston winning this series. That hitting them. We know that Max Domi, Kokiniemi, they're not the strongest guys. I know Domi likes to scrap, but I mean he's not the strongest guy. Aho by any means not the strongest guy. D'Angelo not the strongest guy. So basically the way I look at it is the Hurricanes have skill and speed and
Yeah,
amazing hockey IQ, but they don't have the physicality. Whereas Boston, they do have the hockey IQ, but they have the veteran presence, they have the playoff experience, and they have the physicality. But in terms of speed, I don't think they're the fastest team. And in terms of skill, I think they
I think
lose in that department compared to the
I
Hurricanes.
think look, I think the addition of Hampus Lindholm is going to help the Bruins, but I think also one of the things that we have to look at when we look at the Bruins is that for a long time and even last year they were reliant a lot on Pasternak, Bergeron, and Marchand. And I think that this season, yes, Taylor Hall's had a better year, but I think that this season too,
Eric Haula played well too.
you kind of see that like the Bruins, yes, they had a little bit more depth this year, but I don't know if I don't know if Eric Hall is gonna come into the playoffs and really make a big difference for the Bruins. And that's the biggest thing for me is that I don't think that the Bruins have the team in terms of where Carolina's at and where the Bruins are at. I don't think that they have the team to
They don't have
necessarily
the
compete
best
with
depth,
Carolina.
And you look at the Hurricanes, you have guys who could play multiple positions, like
Yeah,
Domi could play left wing and center, Kokiniemi could play wing and center, Stepan could play wing or center, Stahl could play wing or center. So like, if one guy is not working out in one position, they could switch things around.
yeah, of course.
They have a lot of Swiss Army knives on that team. I would say a lot of guys that could do a lot of things. A jack
I
of all
think.
trades, essentially.
Well,
Like
I think.
I don't know. The Hurricanes are just far superior compared to the
Yeah,
Boston Bruins, and I could eat my words, and I could be wrong. The only way that I see Boston winning is if they come together collectively and they start playing as a team
well,
and they're hot and they use their physicality to their
one of the
advantage.
things that you mentioned before, and I think that Chris brought it up in a previous episode too. To me, I see it this way as well. Defense wins championships, and I think that Carolina has a better defense than Boston, and I think that that's ultimately going to be the difference. I don't think it's going to be goaltending. I don't think it's going to be offense. I think it's going to be defense. I think it's going to be turned around based on who's going to let in. Well, defense and goaltending. I think it's basically going to be who's going to be the one that's going to shut the team down the most, right? And I think what I mean by that more is who's going to have the defense that's going to shut the top line down. What I mean is from Carolina, is Boston's defense going to be able to shut down Carolina's top line? And is Carolina going to be able to shut down Boston's top line? And I think that that's going to make the ultimate difference here. I think that Carolina is more built to do that because I think they have better players and I think they have a better defensive core. And I think Rod Brindamore has done a really good job down there in
They both
Carolina.
have good coaches. Bruce
But
Cassidy and Brandon Moore are both fantastic
yeah,
coaches, in my opinion. Even though I would give Brandon Moore the edge in terms of what he was able to do with the
I think look,
Hurricanes and the team he
but
built.
I think Cassidy's exceeded expectations with Bruins teams in the past, and I think that even the year that they went to the Stanley Cup final with against St. Louis, like I don't think people expected the Bruins to go to the Cup final, right? And so that to me, I think Bruce Cassidy's done a lot of good things with this Bruins team, but I just don't know. And having a young goalie like Jeremy Swayman, who yes, I believe he's going to be a fantastic goalie in this league. I think he already is, but I don't know with the fact that he has no playoff experience. I think it may play a factor, and also the
Not
fact
even
that
Allmark
Omar,
has
yeah,
playoff
exactly.
experience.
I think that because there's no goaltending with playoff experience over there compared to Freddie Anderson, who actually has had playoff experience, um, it could make a difference. One key thing that I'm going to mention, and this might give the Bruins the upper hand. Freddie Anderson hasn't beaten the Bruins in the playoffs, and so
Yeah, when he was with
that's
Toronto, that
yeah,
PTSD might
but
kick in.
but that's what I'm saying. He hasn't beaten Boston in the playoffs. And so that could be something that Boston could take into consideration because they know that they've beaten Freddie Anderson before. And but I think also Freddie Anderson may want to get his revenge. And so I think that that's going to be it. It's going to be a Freddie Anderson revenge tour. And I think that this is why I think Carolina's going to win in six.
It's going to be a lot for Bergeron to handle the Hurricanes. We all know that He literally should rename the Selkie to like the Bergeron Award because he won it on multiple occasions, and even if he when he didn't win it, he was
Yeah,
nominated. Um, but there's only so much a one player could do, and he's not,
that's it.
getting any younger. But he's still a fantastic player by any. But don't get me wrong, by any means, he's not
Yeah.
declining. He's still putting up fantastic points. He's still playing fantastic. He could play in this league for another like 2 3 years, and still put up the same amount of points. But they're just way too much to handle in terms of offense. And you look at the second line center, Eric Holla. I just think he won't be able to handle it. I
That's
just
if there's one thing the Bruins should have done this offseason is go get a guy like a decent center. What I mean by that is, there was guys like Claude Giroux that were available. There were other pieces, other names as well that
they
were
failed to
available.
acquire Christian Dvorak during the offseason that they
You
tried
know,
really hard to acquire.
so Boston
Thomas
needed
Hurdle.
a legit second line center, and I think that they didn't get one, and so Eric Holla ended up being a decent player to put there, but I don't think he's
Somehow it
actually a
worked,
second line
at least for the
center.
moment.
So I think for the Bruins, that's going to play a big part in this series as well. But I think if, like I said before, if you had to give me a a prediction, or if I had to make a prediction, I'm going to tell you right now, I think Carolina wins in six. I think Boston takes 2 games, but I think Carolina ultimately steals takes the
I
series and
agree.
moves on.
I think this is going to be I said five, but I
Yeah,
wouldn't be surprised if it goes to six.
yeah,
The Boston's going to be able to at least steal 1 or 2 games from the Hurricanes, but
yeah.
ultimately, especially if Freddie Anderson's back from his injury, overall the
I think even with
Hurricanes
Ranta though, I think even if Ranta plays all of round one, I still think Carolina has
really,
the upper
I'm
hand.
not too confident in Ranta.
Really,
He's
I
not a
don't know.
bad goalie by any means. It's just that
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I
I
just
think.
don't
Look,
know.
I'll be honest. I think even if Ranta's in nets, I still think Carolina. I think it becomes a closer series, but I think, I think even with Ranta in nets, I think
If
Carolina.
that's the case, then I say 6 games. But if Freddie Anderson's in nets, I say five. That's my
I'm
prediction.
gonna go. I'm gonna go six regardless, just because I think it's a safe bet to go six, because I don't want to underestimate the Bruins either. But I think this series,
They're
like
a
I
good
think they
hockey team. Don't get me wrong. We're not
that's it.
crapping on them. It's just that we're just being honest
I
here.
just think Carolina's better.
We just think that the Hurricanes are better, and the standings show, the stats show.
Yeah.
Even again going back to their record, the Hurricanes won all 3 games against the Bruins this regular season. So in terms of like trying to figure out where both teams are at in terms of comparisons, the
Huh.
Hurricanes have the edge. But again, like I always say, come playoff time, it's a
Things
complete
change.
different
Yeah.
beast. The new season, and it's anyone's game to
Hmm.
win and
I
to
agree.
lose. So
But
I
I
just
think
wanted to say, yeah,
I
sorry.
just want to make one last comment before we end it. I think that, look, the other thing too with Carolina is, they've had the opportunity to have guys that have been, like, I know the Bruins have won Stanley Cups and have been in positions to win, but I think in terms of the experience, I think Carolina's a more experienced team in the playoffs compared to this Bruins team, just simply for the fact that I think goaltending is going to play a huge role, like we mentioned before. But
I mean,
even
the
in
Bruins do
terms of,
have
yeah,
veteran presence,
they
but
do have veteran
whatever.
presence, but I'm saying, like, because uh, to me, playoff experience is really important, and when your goaltending
Yeah, it
doesn't
always
have the
is.
experience, it doesn't. I don't think it benefits you. I think the only time I've seen a goalie not have playoff experience and do well was Matt Murray. So, and I don't know if
Bennington
that's,
too.
yeah, and Binnington too. But I think besides that, like, we haven't really seen it, and so I think that's why the Bruins might end
So
up losing. So we'll see.
yeah, we'll see what happens. Guys, make sure to write your predictions in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we're looking forward to reading and answering your comments. And yeah, we're going to be continuing these first round matchups tomorrow. We're going to be covering the Caps versus the Florida Panthers. Sunday, the Pens versus the Rangers, and then we're going to cover the last two Western teams either on Monday or Tuesday, right before those teams play. The playoffs do start Monday, so we're trying to finish this series as soon as possible. Thank you so much, guys, for supporting us. Don't forget to check out everything else. The Cup or Bust videos are very crucial as well to the 2022 Stanley Cup Playoffs. So don't forget to check out that, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, and see you soon.